Now, this is the same thing you will be doing for the person that's in jail or in prison. Um, Once they file the will, they issue the letter as you being the executor over their estate, and you guys have your declarations on file. You would be setting up the estate for them. So once you get that estate EIN and the IRS has your name as the executor for that person's estate, so you're good on that part for right now. Um, and also I kind of jumped over the declaration. No, or did I? I think I did touch on it. Basically, the declaration is to rebut all the presumptions of law that you're a vessel of the United States or you're subject to the foreign law of the sea, which is the reason why they're locked up. They're locked up because of the commercial code, the commercial law. They have unpaid obligations. They have debts that need to be resolved in the public. And that's the only reason why they're locked up. They're locked up because their vessel is being subject to a foreigner's will, to foreign law, because they don't have a will on file. No one knows what the desire is for that vessel. So we're fixing these things. So all we're dealing with right now is we haven't done nothing to get the vessel out yet. We're just laying the framework. So you have to have a will. You got to be established the executor for their estate. Have to have a declaration of status for the both of you. And you set up your estate with the IRS. Now, and this is not necessary, but it's something I'm still building out, so I can't really speak on it a whole lot. Again, it's not completely necessary, but it makes this process a lot stronger. And that's the need for a trust agreement. And I'm saying trust agreement as opposed to what many of you are familiar with as a secured party agreement or a security agreement that a lot of people put on the UCC one, and they do the addendum with the long property list and all of that. That's a security agreement, but we don't want to be dealing with securities because that's with the commercial system, from my understanding. And that's the foreign law, the law from the sea, which is the same type of law which allows for the vessel to be incarcerated now, subject to the will of the foreigner. So we don't want to have a security agreement because we are on the land, and on the land we have an inheritance and we deal with trusts. So instead of having a security agreement, we can make it a trust agreement, and you can still file it on a UCC one. Of course, use the box Bailey Baylor, and some of us are doing that anyway, but we're calling it a security agreement. But let's not call it that because that's confessing to be subject to the contract, and we're not subject to the contract. Everything that's on the land and the vessels, they belong to us. They belong to us. We are the grantor and the beneficiary. God with us. You see what I'm saying? Emmanuel. That's what it is. You're the grantor, you're the establisher, the creator of the trust, and you're the one to benefit from it. So let's not call these things security agreement. Let's call them trust agreements. And you can still put evidence of the trust on a UCC1. And of course, we're using Bailey, Baylor, because a bailment is a trust. And it's not going to go from the uppercase man to the lowercase man. What it is as the bailor or the grantor of this trust, you would be in the area of what would usually be a secured party. And from my opinion, someone in the public, one of the public trustees, is going to be the bailee because he's the one that is in receipt. He's the one that's in receipt of the assets and required to use the assets in accordance with the terms of the bailment. That's a little bit beyond the scope of this, so don't get wrapped up around a security agreement. It's not necessary. But as we start working through this, and I'll have a sample of that, and then if you want to use it, you can. But again, as we get through this full process, you'll see that that's not necessarily a requirement, but it's something that will only help. So now that you have all the documents in place, I'll just recap the documents that you need, and that'll conclude the paperwork that has to be in place before you start your process. And then next we'll kind of go into the process of what you actually do. So as a final recap, uh, the person in prison needs to have the will on file in the county, and if they're doing federal time, it's preferable that you put it in the general filing of the district. The will has to point to the executor, which needs to be you. You need a letter a letter of executorship. Template of those two documents can be found at thctrust.org. Um, uh, and the court should issue the testamentary letter, also acknowledging you as the executor. Then both of you need a declaration of status. We have a declaration of indigenous status on thctrust.org, but I would also recommend perhaps, I think that also your declaration establishing yourself as a Moor or as a part of another nation would also be beneficial. So it's good to have that on file also. With your peace treaty, and if you don't have a peace treaty already, make one up. Write one. But you want a peace treaty on file. Now, and again, remember when I say on file, these things need to be recorded in the record, preferably the record of where the person's locked up. So if they're locked up doing federal stuff, then in the district. On a state level, then filed within the county. So again, when I say on the record, it has to be recorded in the deed book somewhere, and then set up your status with the IRS so that they know who the executor of the estate is, so that when they start receiving paperwork, should we have to send them paperwork, they'll be ready to receive it.